Hello students and welcome to the e-learning program initiated by Shri Gyanmanjari Vidyapith for the students of Standard 10 in which we are learning the subject of English. Students, we had started with chapter number 8 of the main book, that is First Flight. So let us take a quick recap of what we have learned so far. In chapter number 8, name of the chapter is Mitchell the Otter. In that we learned that the chapter has been authored by Gavin Maxwell, and we learned that in the starting of the chapter some important hints are given to us regarding points to remember when we are adopting a pet. So when we are adopting a pet, one of the most important thing is all the family members. If it's a single person, then not a question, but if the pet is to be adopted by household, complete family, then all the members of the family should be willing to adopt the pet. Otherwise, the pet would not get enough love and care by all the members of the family. Basically, because pet itself we consider as a part of the family. More than that, it becomes a responsibility for the owner of the pet, because pet usually we keep in our home, our house, and the pet totally becomes dependent on us for all its needs and requirements, that whether that is food, whether that is entertainment, whether that's usual exercise, uh, taking care of it, loving it, looking after its health, uh, all the necessary medication that it needs time to time. For dogs, etc., we need vaccinations to be done. So it has a very short life. These pets, especially dogs and cats, they have a lifespan of only 10 to 14, 15 years. So with that much time, a lot of attachment comes, because it becomes a family member, it lives with us. So if a pet dies, as in the case of Gavin Maxwell, his pet dog Johnny dies, and then for quite a long time he's not interested in uh, adopting another pet. But after all, the loneliness haunts him, and now he wants to adopt a pet. But now this time he's not going to take a dog. He wants, or he's thinking of taking an otter as a pet. So while one of his visit to Iraq, he tells his friend about his wish to take an otter as a pet. Say he just had a wild idea, and they had to go to the consulate general, that is the embassy's office, for collecting their mail. The friend goes away as his mail had arrived, and that leaves the author behind, because his mail has not arrived, and his call booking also takes more than a week. So he is stationed right now for 4 5 days at the consulate general, or the or the embassy. And meanwhile, the other friend, he makes arrangement in a few days. When he receives his mail, the author receives his mail, and he goes back to his room to read it. He finds two Arabs sitting over there, squatting on the floor, with a sack which is constantly moving, and with it a note saying that, and here is the order for you. The two Arabs had bought him an Arab. The two Arabs had brought him an otter from the Tigrish marshlands. When the author opens the bag, an otter jumps outside, and it is for the first time the author sees the otter. Gavin Maxwell sees the otter, and the otter is it's quite in a new surrounding environment. So it tries to hide in a corner, trying to stay away from uh, Gavin Maxwell. And Gavin Maxwell then goes on to relate all the experiences it has initial days, uh, what was the behavior of the otter. Then he gives it a name, Midgeville. So Midgeville for first 2 days was quite away from the author and trying to be in a corner, quite safe place, and uh, it was fully covered with mud, and the mud had already uh, dried out, so the author was not able to see the true colors of the animal. But later, after 2 days, the the animal sees no danger, and he becomes a little bit friendly with the author and sleeps with him in the night near his legs under the blanket. Then, as he gained some trust in the author, so he allows the author to take him to the bathroom, and the otter is filled with joy because after 2 days he sees water, because it's a waterfall, and it's a water animal, so it loves water like anything, and there's a lot of sound making, noise making in the tub, and the author, he tries to clean up the animal, all the mud it has on the top. After 1 week he was able to scrub off the last of the mud, and then he could see the animal in its true colors. Then we have an incident where the animal is closed because he has to go out for the author has to go out for some work, so he closes the door of the bedroom and keeps the animal inside. But the animal we saw, otter, it's quite a small one. So as soon as he opens the bedroom door, the otter escapes, but the escape is not outside of the room, outside in the free space, outside of the building. He rushes towards bathroom where his fun-loving water is there, and he has seen all this time how the author opens the tap, so he goes and sees the bathtub dry without water, so he knows where the source of water is, and very intelligently he tries to open it in the same way uh, the author has opened the tap, and he is even successful. Within very short time, that is within few seconds, he is able to open the tap fully, and the tap is running and water is filling the bathtub, and then usual he has fun in the bathtub. Till there we learned. On later occasions he would screw it up still tighter, chittering with irritation and disappointment at the tap's failure to cooperate. Sometimes he did it in the right way, open the tap in the right direction, but sometimes he closed it in the or he tried to open it in the wrong direction, tightening the tap more, so no water would come out, and this time he would be irritated that water is not coming out after all this fruitless work that he has been doing on the tap to open it, but then it's just not opening. So chittering, making sounds with his teeth, irritating, and his disappointment is the tap is failing to cooperate with him and not giving out water. Very soon Midge would follow me without a lead and come to me when I called his name. So now he's trying to become friendly, so there is no need to keep a leash on him or a lead on him. That is say a leather belt around his body, which other end would be in the author's hand, and he would take out so that he wouldn't escape here and there, run away here and there, because there's that small animal, a crack of the wall, it would disappear, and then it would take lots of time to find it, or perhaps he won't disappear at all. So now the author is having lots of trust on the animal, and now wherever he goes he just calls the otter by its name, Midgeville, and Midgeville comes running, and now he doesn't need a leash or a lead on him. He spent most of his time in play. It's a very playful animal, and it knows its restricted environment is in the room, and he takes whatever is available over there and just keeps on playing the whole of the game, and gets tired, he goes to sleep. Yes, food is given to him, he has it, and he is happy. So he spent most of his time in play. He spent hours shuffling a rubber ball around the room like a four-footed soccer player, using all 4 feet to dribble the ball. These small animals, they are very agile. Agile means they're full of movement and quite a lot of speedy movements. They are very very active, and they like to play with these small balls, because even in their own environment, for example, they make mud balls or some fruit lying over there, and they play happily for hours with it. So they are very familiar with those balls. So here also a soft rubber ball is given to him, and he would dribble it with dribble. We do it in basketball, we even do it in football, right? So dribbles it like a four-footed soccer player, soccer football. So here we take it granted that he works on the ball like a four-footed. We are two-footed soccer players. He is a four-footed soccer player, using all 4 feet to dribble the ball. Yes, he keeps on playing with the ball with the help of all his four legs, and he could also throw it with the help of the neck and giving it a push. Suddenly, with his nose, he can throw. A powerful flick of the neck with the movement of the neck. He can, with the help of his head, he can even throw the ball to quite a lot of height and distance. But the real play of an otter is when he lies on his back and juggles with small objects between his paws. This, for this, otters are really, really famous for. Otters, they are very good jugglers. They sleep on their back. They lie down on their back so that the four legs are towards the sky. Then they take some small object, and with the help of four legs, they keep on juggling that object. They are very, very famous for these things. With his paws. Marbles were Mid's favorite toys for this pastimes. He would lie on his back, rolling two or more of them up and down his wide, flat belly without even dropping on one to the floor. Marbles, small, small marbles, right? He would lie down on the floor on his back, the four legs towards the sky, and then he would put two marbles on his belly and make wave like. With the help of his stomach, he would create waves on his belly, and the marbles will roll from the rear end of the animal to the front end of the animal, and again go back. So otters, really, they are very very famous for these play games, right? And Mitchell was an expert on these things, right? He can play with the softball for quite a long time, dribbling the ball for with the help of all his four legs. And another of his favorite game was lying down on his back, and he can juggle small objects with that, with his paws, not dropping them. Marbles were one of his favorites. He would put them on his belly and roll them from his neck towards the rear end of itself, and then again it would come back without even one marble falling down. He would put more than one or two on his belly. So these are the favorite pastimes. Now we come to part 8.3. The days passed peacefully at Basra while the stay. Now he must have moved from the consulate general to his hotel or wherever he was living. So wherever he goes, he takes Misbil, because now the Misbil is its pet. So the days passed peacefully at Basra, but I dreaded the prospect of transporting Mitch to England. Whenever the author thought of going back to England, he was almost worried about that thought, because then he has to transport, he has to take Mitchell along with him to England, and that also then from England then to Chelmsford, that is his Scottish cottage where he was living. So transporting Mitch from Iraq, that is Basra, to England was a problem, and then he has to transport him from there to California. So that's quite a little bit of problem. The British airline to London would not fly animals. Now each and every airlines, international airlines, they have their own set of rules and regulations. So British Airways, they do not allow animals to fly. Yes, you have to book them separately. They will come in the luggage room. Uh, say during that flight or after one or two flights, they would have to be booked separately, and they wouldn't allow you to carry the animal with you. So British Airline, it won't allow animals to fly. So I booked a flight to Paris on another airline, and from there to London. So he had to take a reroute, and he had to fly another airline which would allow flying animals in the flight. So he booked a flight which would take him from Basra to Paris, and from Paris he would fly another airline which will take him to England. The airline insisted that meat should be packed in a box not more than 18 inches square to be carried on the floor at my feet. Now, as we discussed, each and every airline has their own set of rules and regulations for taking pets or flying pets with them or animals with them. So, this particular airline, they gave the instructions that if you are transporting an otter with you, then they know the size. So it should be an 18 inches square box in which you put the animal, and then you will have to put the box at your feet so that constantly you watch it for its needs, etc., and so that it doesn't create any problem on the flight. So the author, he made the box ready. I had a box made, it was made for him, and an hour before we started, I put Midge in the box so that he would become accustomed to it, and left for a hurried meal. So 1 hour before the flight, what Gavin Maxwell did is he opened the box, put Mitchell inside, and closed the box so that he gets accustomed in that environment, and he knows that now for some little time he has to remain in a box. And only 1 hour was left for the flight, so he hurriedly went out of the hotel to have his meal, and the worst things happened when he returned. When I returned, there was an appalling spectacle. Appalling, which is not likable. Yes, it's a very thing which you don't like to see. Appalling spectacle. There was complete silence from the box, but from its air holes and chinks around the lid, blood had trickled and dried. That means Mitchell had forced its way out of the box, and in doing it, he got hurt physically because he had to open it, and he tried to go out through the small holes. He must have poked his nose up, so he must have got quite injured in doing it, and must have cut himself sharp edges of the hole or the chinks or the sides of it. So he must have tried to nip off little bit wood from the box from inside, and that must have injured him. So there was complete silence from the box. There was no movement, there was no sound coming out of the box. And near the air holes and the chinks round the lid, blood had trickled and it had dried in 1 hour. I wiped off the lock and tore open the lid, and Mitchell, exhausted and blood spattered, whimpered and caught at my leg. So the animal was not able to come out of the box because it was locked from outside, but it had tried its level best. It got exhausted, and it got injured. Lots of blood had oozed out from the cuts, and he was completely tired, and that is why there was complete silence from the box. So as soon as that appalling spectacle of the box covered with blood here and there, the author saw it, he was quite dreaded by it, and very soon he just opened the lock and opened the upper lid of the box. Out came the offer. It whipped out. I whipped off the lock and tore open the lid in quite a haste. And Midge, he came out exhausted, completely tired, and blood splattered, completely covered with blood, so that you don't know where the cut is, because from the cut the blood oozes out and spreads, and then it dries up. Whimpered, give out sounds in pain. That's called whimpering, and caught at my leg. No, the pet, yes, it got lots of attachment with the author, So it came out and clung to my leg. Yes, he had torn the lining of the box to shreds pieces. Lining, the inside lining of the box, he must have cut with his teeth, sharp teeth, and the box was shattered from inside, and those splinters must have gone in the skin. When I removed the last of it so that there were no cutting edges left, it was just 10 minutes until the time of the flight. Now he cannot get another box made in a short notice, so he had to he had to rub the box with some sharp thing so that he can cut off all the sharp edges and make it smooth so that it doesn't again hurt the otter. And after doing all that, he had just 10 minutes to reach the airport, time of the flight. And the airport was 5 mile distant. The 5 mile, the airport was 5 miles away from the spot. So, and he had got only 10 minutes. So he has to find a taxi. The driver must be very experienced in the driving in the such a haste and with lots of traffic jams, and he should be able to cover the distance of 5 miles in 10 minutes. I put the miserable midge back into box, holding down the lead with my hand, and I sat in the back of the car with the box beside me as the driver drove through the streets of Basra like a ricocheting bullet. I sat in the back of the car. Now I took Mijbil and my luggage and I sat in the car and I put the box beside me so that I can know if he's trying to come out of the box. And while I was doing that, the driver, he was tearing through means he was cutting, and he was overtaking the cars or the vehicles in front of him in such a way that it looks as if he's cutting through the traffic, through the streets of Basra like a ricocheting bullet. Ricocheting means when a bullet is fired, if it hits a wall or a stone at an angle, it creates a sound. That's called the ricocheting sound of the bullet. So it looks as if he's going right and left because a bullet is fired with lots of force. When it hits one of the walls or a rock, it keeps on going ting tang, yes, until it loses momentum. So the taxi is going through the traffic just like a ricocheting bullet. The aircraft was waiting to take off. Good old days, yes, where the airliner, it used to wait for the passenger to come, and even if the flight got delayed a little bit, then also they used to wait for the passenger. It doesn't happen nowadays, right? The aircraft was waiting to take off. I was rushed through it by officials, infuriated, quite angry. Yes, because we had to halt or delay the aircraft just because, or the flight just because of you. You are late. Yes. So officials. Luckily, the seat booked for me was at the extreme front. That means if he seated somewhere in between, what would happen is that Mitch would come out and then get lost the aisle, and it would be very difficult to find him. But very luckily, he has lots of leg space over there because extreme front, his seat is over there, so he has a lots of space where he can keep the box which contains the midge, and he can keep an eye on it. I covered the floor around my feet with newspaper, rang for the air hostess, and gave her a parcel of fish for Midge to keep in a cool place. So refrigerators are there in the airplane. So I covered the floor with my feet with newspaper so that it doesn't dirty the floor of the aircraft because it's rugged. So rang for the air hostess, and rang for the air hostess. There's always a bell on the top. You just punch it and the air hostess comes. So the air hostess was given a parcel. It was a fish for Mitchell to be kept in a cool place because during the flight, it's quite a long flight from Iraq to Basra to France. I took her into my confidence about the events of the last half hour. So I had a small chat with her where I made her understood that he is injured and the pet is injured, and in the last few minutes these things happened and I had to rush out uh, over to the airport with an injured pet and all that. So that is how the author tried to gain the confidence of the uh, air hostess, so that if something happens, she will be very willing to help. The events of the last hour, I have retained the most profound admiration for that air hostess, because after telling her all the truth, all the things that happened in the last half an hour or 1 hour, 1 hour, the air hostess was very willing to help me out if there was a problem, and there was a problem, and this air hostess helped me a lot during the flight to handle the pet. So I had lots of admiration, profound lots of admiration for this particular air hostess. She was the queen of her kind. Of her kind, queen of her kind. Here, kind means uh, the profession in which the lady is, that is air hostess. Now, air hostess, their job is to take care of all the uh, needs and necessities of the passengers, take care of them in a most willing, because it's that job, right? So in a most willing manner and in a most sophisticated manner, with all the admiration that they can have, they try to serve the passengers while they are on the flight. So this is her profession, but she goes out of the way to help out, because the author had cleared up lots of events related with Mitchell before he took the flight or he got seated in the flight. So for the author, that air hostess, she becomes the queen of her kind, the best one in her profession. She suggested that I might prefer to have my pet on my knee, and I could have kissed her hand in the depth of my gratitude. I know that the author, he knew that uh, Miss Bill was not comfortable in that box, right? So after listening to whatever the author had to say, what happened during the last half an hour, 1 hour, and after saying that he had an injured pet with him, the air hostess very conveniently she said that if the author wanted, he can take the pet out of the box and keep it on his knee and see that, take care of him, because he is injured, the pet is injured. And I could have kissed her hand in gratitude, with how to express my thankfulness to that author. So the author, thankfulness to the air hostess. So inside he feels as if a lot of a lot of thankfulness should be shown to the air hostess, because she is allowing to him to take out the pet from the cage and put the pet on his laps and try to make the animal comfortable. But not knowing otters, I was quite unprepared of what followed. I didn't know much of otters. I just adopted him a few days back, and I still don't know much about otters. So I made the mistake of taking out Mitchell from the box and trying to put him on my lap. Midge was out of the box in a flash. He disappeared at high speed down the aircraft. This is what happened. As soon as the author opened the box to take Mitchell out of the box, before he can even touch Mitchell, Mitchell sprang out of the box and ran below the seat in the aisle and disappeared, going behind the seat and then crossing the rest of the seats, below the seats, and disappeared the backside of the aircraft. There were quacks and shrieks, and a woman stood up on her seat screaming, "A rat, rat!" Yeah, we have seen the picture of otter. It's just a little bit bigger than mongoose, but then it looks, because of its height, it looks like a big rat. So, under the seat, under the seat, wherever the otter goes, people have to take up their legs in air. Yes, because they are surprised, very much shocked to see an animal inside aircraft, which usually does not happen, right? And the people sitting behind the author, they did not know that the author had a pet inside the aircraft. So all of a sudden there is some movement in between their legs, or they see some movement somewhere nearby the seat. They spring up and take their legs up in the air, and a woman, she climbed on her seat, right? And so there are lots of sounds coming up from behind in the aisle, and woman stood up on her seat, and she didn't know it was an otter, so she's screaming, "A rat, rat!" I caught sight of Mid's tail disappearing between the legs of a portly white turbaned Indian. This turbaned Indian must be a Sardarji, right? So just had a glimpse of where Mitchell was. When the author turned and tried to look behind, he could see tail of the Mitchell, tail of the otter disappearing somewhere between the legs of a portly, a little bit fat. Yes, white turban. He was wearing a white turban. An Indian. That means it must be a Sardarji. Diving for it, I missed. So the author must have got up and tried to chase and try to catch Mitchell. He dived to catch hold because he had just disappeared in between the legs of a white turban Indian, that is Sardarji. Diving for it, I missed, but found my face covered in curry. Yes, Sardarji, I must be eating something liquid, so curry. So he died for the otter, but he found his face buried in curry. "Perhaps," said the air hostess with the most charming smile. Yes, air hostesses are trained to uh, have a permanent smile even in the worst situation, because they have to take care of the passengers. So, even in this circumstances where an animal like otter has disappeared in the maze of the seats over there, and quite difficult to find otter in such a short space as the aircraft, but still the uh, air hostess is having quite a soothing smile, and it tries to relieve the passenger of all his worries and says, "Don't worry, we'll get hold of the animal somehow and he will be brought to you." So now we come to part 8.4. After an eventful journey, Maxwell and his otter reach London, where he has a flat. So that was the episode on the flight. Later on, somehow, anyhow, the people must have caught the otter and given it back to uh, Gavin Maxwell, and then must have put it in the box, or must have put a strap around it and kept him under the leash, whatever. But that episode is over, and they not only reach France, Paris, but they also take up another flight and go to London, where the author has a flat. Midge and I remained in London for nearly a month. It was the author's own flat over there in London. So they lived, Midge and the author lived over there in the London flat for nearly a month. He would play for hours with a selection of toys, ping pong balls, marbles, rubber fruit, and a terrapin shell that I had brought back from his native marshes. Now, the otter, as we know, is a very playful animal, and whatever it has, it keeps on playing with it all of the day. Yes, padna likhna to hai nahi unko, right? So they keep on playing, and he has quite a selection of toys with him. Ping pong balls, that is table tennis balls, marbles, then rubber fruit. Rubber fruit means different shapes, जो बच्चे खेलते हैं, right? वो चू चू वाले आते हैं जो Alright, and a terrapin shell. Terrapin shell, the shell of a tortoise like, right? And that shell, the inside, it's already carved out and only the shell is remaining, so it would play with it. And those things are found, those small animals are found in the marshes, Tigris marshes. And one of the dry shell has been brought home because it reminds the otter of its native place. With the ping pong ball, he invented a game of his own which could keep him engrossed for up to half an hour at a time. Now, the otter, it's quite innovative and it devises its own games with the toys that it has. Yes, just like children, small children, they devise their own games. We give them one game which has to be played in a particular manner, in a particular way. But you give it to the children, they will play it in all different ways according to their imagination. So same way, the ping pong ball, that is the table tennis ball, with that ball he invented a game of his own. That game he will be engrossed. Engrossed means completely engaged in that game without giving attention to any of the environment outside or of his surroundings. He would be engrossed and submerged in that game for up till half an hour at the stretch. A suitcase that I had taken to Iraq had become damaged on the journey home. So the author had taken a suitcase when he went to Iraq, and the same suitcase returned back to him in this London flat. But during the journey back, the suitcase must have got damaged. One of the side was not closing properly, so that the lid, when closed, remained at a slope from one end to the other. Yes, so it must have got damaged and got pressed on one side. So what happens is the other side remains open and you cannot close the suitcase properly. Mitch discovered that if he placed the ball on the high end, it would run down the length of the suitcase. A very simple game. Because the lid of the suitcase remained slant, because one of the side went inside and other side remained up, there was a slope over there. So Mitch discovered that if you put that table tennis ball or the ping pong ball on the top, it would roll down to the complete length of the suitcase. That was discovered somehow by the otter. He would dash around to the other end to ambush its arrival, hide from it, crouching to spring up and take it by surprise, grab it and trot off with it to the high end once more. So the game was, the otter would put the ball on the high end, and before the ball can reach the other end of the suitcase, before that he would run and try to face it, and every time he would devise something new way of catching. Yes, and give certain expressions as if just by surprise he is getting it. He would catch it in his teeth, or he would catch it with the paw, or try to flick it with its neck. Yes, and again happily taking the ball would go to the higher end, again place it, and again run down to welcome the ball in some different way. So this way, this game devised by him, he used to keep on playing it for at least half an hour without even aware of the surroundings. Outside the house, I exercised him on a lead precisely as if he had been a dog. Now, rules are there, right? If you are carrying your pet, if you are walking your pet outside, you got to have it on a leash or on a lead so that it doesn't attack the passerbys or the pedestrians, or doesn't run away and create a hell lot of trouble. Sometimes these dogs, they have a tendency to run behind children or old people. Yes, so it's better to keep them under control. So when he goes outside, he keeps the animal on the lead so that it's under his control. He doesn't have the same situation as he had in the airplane. So he takes, just like a dog, he takes the animal outside for a walk, for some little bit of exercise, running, and satisfying. That again, these animals, they are quite comfortable in the nature outside rather than the house. Midge quickly developed certain compulsive habits on these walks in London streets, like the rituals of children on their way to and from school must place their feet squarely on the center of each paving block. So these animals, they devise their own tricks and they devise their own plays outside. So just like any other dog, what the dog does, snips over here, goes over there, yes, and makes the owner run from hither and thither trying to uh, carry them behind. So this way Midge also devised certain habits while he was outside. Just like you see children, yes, not toddlers, but children who go to school, first, second standard, third standard. Yes, while coming back from school, they never carry their school bags. The mothers have to carry them, and they would be they always will be having some fun. The small little walk from their school bus to their house. Yes, they have uh, devised some play and they follow that play every day. For example, the squares or the blocks that are on the way, they'll jump, keep on jumping, alternate one another. They'll devise something. If there is a small compound wall, they'll climb on it and walk the whole of the wall and jump on the other side. So that way they'll devise some meaningless games, but for them it's quite fun. So same way, Mitchell also he devised some ways, habits during these walks in London. He must touch every seventh upright of the iron railing or pass the outside of every second lamp post. These are for children. So the fences that are the gardens that are outside or the lawns that are outside, people put up a fencing. So the children they devise it. Yes, they touch one fence and then they should touch the seventh one. Then they should again touch the seventh one. That is their device game. Same way, Mitchell also has it divided. Or if there are electric poles or telephone poles in between, then they will go outside of every second post and inside of every alternate post. So they will devise some meaningless games, but these games they offer quite a lot of fun to them. Opposite to my flat was a single-storied primary school, along whose frontage ran a low wall some 2 feet high. So just opposite to my flat was a single-storied. That means it didn't have any other story. The single-story primary school, and outside near the road it had a boundary wall only 2 feet high. On his way home, but never on his way out. So as we said, children they have their particular games when they go out or when they are going to school or when they are coming back from school. So when the author takes the author for a walk, while going he will not play the game, but while coming back or returning towards the flat, he will play this game. He will climb on the wall on his way home, but never on his way out. Midge would tug me to this wall. Tug me, he would stretch. He wants to go and climb over the wall. So he stretches the line and gives a pull to the author and calls him to allow the leash, loosen the leash so that he can climb the wall. Jump on it, because it's just 2 feet. So he will jump on it and gallop the full length of 30 yards. Yard is 1 foot that we place. The distance between the 2 feet when you are walking, yes, a little bit stretched. That is 1 yard, right? So the compound wall of that school was 30 yards in length, and once he would climb it, he would run on that compound length at top speed, and the school is going on. Now you can understand the children must be waiting every day for the author to come and make that sprint, and they would be yelling from their classes, disturbing whole of the school like anything. So we can see the commotion that is created by Mitchell. He is having his own fun, but then he is also providing lots of entertainment to that primary school children, to the hopeless distraction both of pupils and the staff within. So whenever it's time for the author to come and climb, and then whole of the class is cheering from the windows and seeing that author run at full speed 30 yards from one end of the boundary wall to the other end. And not only the children, the whole of the staff of the school is also distracted. It is not I suppose, in any way strange that the average Londoner should not recognize an otter. It's not a strange thing because people, if even they have not seen an otter, but lots of otters are available in zoo, or there might be pictures of it. So an average Londoner, that means an average citizen, would be knowing, having enough knowledge, because we are in a country uh, which is the birthplace of the English language. They are quite learned people, and so everybody loves a lot of reading, so they are at least accustomed. They must have seen somewhere a picture of otter and they must recognize it. I suppose in any way strange that an average Londoner should not recognize an otter. So if I am taking an otter out for a walk, they should know this is not a dog, or this is not a big rat, or this is not some other animal, it's an otter. But the variety of guesses as to what kind of animal this might be came as a surprise to me. I thought it must be common, right? People should recognize otter as an otter. Why should they come and ask me which animal are you leading, right? So people come and ask me strange questions and they have strange guesses. Yes, so those guesses, their guesswork is quite interesting. Otters belong to a comparatively small group of animals called mustelines, shared by the badger, mongoose, weasel, stoat, mink, and other. This is when I said mongoose, right? So uh, it's little bit bigger than a mongoose. Otherwise, the family is the same. So comparatively small group of animals, they are called mustelines, and lots of variety of animals falls in mustelin. They are the badger, mongoose, weasel, stoat, mink, and some others. I faced a continuous barrage, a whole lot of questions, of conjectural questions that sprayed at the mustelines, but the otter. People made a wild guess, right? They would give some other name, but not the otter. Every time I would get some other name, but not an otter. More random guesses hit on. That is, more people would say it's a baby seal or it's a big squirrel, but people would never come to the real family of mustelines, and they would never guess out that this is an otter. Somebody even asked me, is this a walrus? Walrus, they are available in the Arctics, right? So, have big tooth lying on the seashore on the snow. So you must have seen that in the pictures, National Geographic. Is that a walrus? Because people are not accustomed to see such an animal on the street. Reduced me to giggles. I felt like laughing when I am taking an otter out and I am asked if this is a walrus. And outside a dog show, I heard a hippo. Outside a dog show, I heard my pet being called a hippo, or it's a beaver, it's a cub of a bear, a leopard also maybe. One apparently that changed its spots. Leopards cannot change their spots, but this is a leopard that can change a spot. And a brontosaur, one of a dinosaur. Midge was anything but an otter. People just kept on guessing what this animal would be, and it would make the author laugh like anything when he is addressed with everything, every other animal, but not an otter. But the question for which I awarded, who's the highest score, wild guess, but it should be of such a level that I will not be laughing, I will be stunned and shocked. The question to which I award the highest score came from a laborer who was digging a hole in the street. I was still far from him when he laid down his tool. He puts he put his hands on his hips and began to stare at the animal. So when the author he came nearer with the otter in the lead, I saw his expression of surprise and affront. That means as though he would have me know that he was not one upon whom to play jokes. I'm a good one. I know who this animal is, so you can't play jokes with me. That it. I came abreast of him, that means just in front of him. He spat on the ground, glared and then growled, "Hey, mister, what is that supposed to be?" No guesses. This one is some sort of dinosaur, or it's a bear, a cub of a bear, right? Or a leopard who can change spots. Nothing. Yes, as if this animal has come from Moon or Jupiter, he asked the author, "Hey, mister, what is this thing that you have lead on? What is this animal supposed to be? It doesn't look like anything." So, the award goes to this person who doesn't recognize an otter at all. Right? So, we come to the end of this chapter and end of today's lecture. Thank you.